officially open.
22 defensive linemen, ends and tackles that potential to be first or early second rounders.
Nick Bosa, I think he's got a really good chance to be the #1 overall pick.
I believe that he will be a great NFL player.
Caught behind the line by Devin White. Leveled as he let go of the ball.
And a lot of people in the NFL didn't expect Kyler Murray to ever be a part of this draft process.
That is the kind of play that Kyler Murray has been completing all season.
There's a long way to go until April.
They call him greedy.
It's intercepted. Greedy Williams.
With the first pick, the Arizona Cardinals select.
There may be a long way to go, but here's what we do know. With the Super Bowl over, we now have our official draft order for 2019. And for the first time in the common draft era, the Cardinals hold the #1 overall pick, with the Patriots picking at number 32, thanks to winning their 6th Super Bowl title. A good problem to have. As we say hello and welcome to our SportsCenter special, Mel Kiper's Mock Draft 2.0. I'm Wendy Nix in Bristol, here with Lewis Riddick. You can see that Mel Kiper is with us. So too is Todd McShay. And gentlemen, we'll start with our top draft storylines as we make our way to the end of April. Probably the most intriguing player has to be Oklahoma's Kyler Murray. The Heisman Trophy winner announced his decision to play in the NFL last week. He's looking to become the first person to be a first-round pick in both the MLB and NFL drafts. Oakland could control the draft. 3 first-round picks, thanks to trading Amari Cooper and Khalil Mack. The Packers also have an extra first. This year's draft, a heavy defensive theme. Each of Mel's top 5 in his mock draft are on defense, as well as 20 of the 32 first-rounders overall. Not among them, Mississippi State's Jeffrey Simmons, the projected top 15 pick, suffered a torn ACL in his left knee during training. He went number 17 in Mel's first mock, likely a day 2 selection now. News broke today that Oklahoma receiver Marquise Brown, a projected top 15 pick, underwent surgery for a Liz Frank injury. He will miss both the combine and his pro day. So we'll get started with the mock draft, the #1 overall pick to the Arizona Cardinals. According to Mel, Ohio State defensive end Nick Bosa, second in Big Ten in sacks in 2017 before he was limited to 3 games in 2018 because of a core muscle injury. The Cardinals are selecting first overall for the very first time, as I mentioned before, in the common draft era. We've done this before, we'll do it again. Every discussion, or debate if you will have our mock clock running when it's 0. Gentlemen, it's time to move on to the next pick. So for this, we put 3 minutes on the clock, and we will start, Mel, with Nick Bosa and why he deserves the top pick in the draft.
Great pass rusher, Wendy, 17.5 sacks in 29 games, 29 tackles for loss in those 29 games. You referenced the injury, also had an injury his senior year in high school. So durability is the only real concern with Nick Bosa when he's on the field. He's a dynamic pass rusher coming off the edge, like his brother Joey Bosa has been when he's been healthy. His father John, former first-round pick of the Miami Dolphins. So I think you look at this kid, talented, fits what today's NFL wants their defensive guys up front to do, which is get after the quarterback. If he's on the field for 16 games, he's going to rack up the sack numbers. But the big question is, can he play a full season at 100%? Durability, really the only concern with Nick Bosa.
All right, Mel, Todd, if we are to assume he's healthy and can stay healthy, what's the drop-off from Bosa to the next pass rusher?
You know, I think that there's so many good pass rushers, so many good defensive linemen in this class, but there is a drop-off in my opinion. When I look at Bosa, I think he's NFL ready right now. Between his hand usage, the leverage that he uses, the ability to work the edges of an offensive tackle and know how to do those things, I don't see that with a lot of other college prospects. But again, there are so many talented players. You've got Rashawn Gary, who was the #1 recruit coming out of high school, going into Michigan. Did not have the production that Bosa had, but he is strong. He's going to be a great, I think, left defensive end in the NFL. Wait till you watch him run in the 4.5s at about 280 pounds. And the other guy that I think probably could threaten the most, if you will, in terms of an edge rusher, is Josh Allen from Kentucky. The more tape I watch, the more I love his game. And he's getting better and better. He had good production for a couple of years. This past year, 17 sacks in the SEC. I think Allen, I'm not saying that he's Bosa, but he's probably the closest thing. If you're looking for a pure edge rusher as a right defensive end or a 3-4 outside linebacker, Allen's your guy right after Bosa.
You know what's also unfair, thank you, Todd, is, of course, the inevitable comparisons to his brother. But, well, you know what? That's what we do. So how does Nick compare to his brother, Joey Bosa, who's clearly effective in the National Football League?
Yeah, it's very favorable. When you watch them, you would really, if you put tape of these two side by side, you would obviously say, look, these guys are very similar. You'd probably have a tough time if you switch jerseys saying who was who. They both are able to do this. They're both able to play in varying schemes. They could both play in a 3-4 and stand up and play in a 2-point, or play in a 4-3 and put their hand down. The thing that's cool about both of these guys is this. They can play the run and they can set a hard edge, which means first down, their value is through the roof. That gets them to second and third down, which is where these guys are really going to earn their money. And look, I'll say this about Nick. He has tremendous hand use. Todd touched on it. He plays with tremendous body tilt. He comes off the line of scrimmage already about 6 inches off the ground. He's got tremendous power and a tremendous motor. He'll be just as good as his brother if he stays healthy.
All right, and again, as you heard Mel say, if he stays healthy, the operative phrase that everybody will be talking about, that's the chime. So we move on. We know who Mel believes will go #1 overall. That's Nick Bosa. How about the first quarterback off the board? Here's a hint.
I'm working for this moment right here.
So, Mel, if we're talking about quarterbacks and the first off the board, you have the first quarterback at #6 out of Ohio State, Dwayne Haskins, headed to the Giants. We'll put 3 minutes, 30 seconds on the mock clock. Mel, why is Haskins your #1 QB?
Well, I think the right fit for the Giants. They want the heir apparent to Eli Manning. Dwayne Haskins is a traditional drop-back pocket passer. Yes, he can run and pick up a first down, 5-6 yards when need be. But he's in that pocket. He's climbing that pocket, making accurate throws. I love the way he dealt with adversity on the road at Happy Valley, down 26-14 at Penn State. Let them back up on that roll late. Even the year before, when he did coming off the bench against Michigan, rallying them to that victory there. He loves to play quarterback. He understands what it takes. He wants to be the CEO, and he had one heck of a year for the Buckeyes.
Todd?
I agree. I think
the pregnant pause. How can this be?
Because I'm agreeing with Mel. No, seriously, I think he's the most natural pocket passer and just thrower and quarterback in this entire class. First of all, and most importantly, you talk to people at Ohio State, they love the character of the young man and just absolutely rave about what he does in terms of preparation, getting ready for games, his toughness, the things that he had to do. Then you look at the 14 games, and everyone's going to say, well, he only started 14 games. Same with Kyler Murray, 13 for Mitch Trubisky. He was 13-1 as a starter. And he was 13-1 as a starter on a team for Ohio State that was a mess this year with obvious issues with Urban Meyer, and they didn't have a run game, and he was carrying this football team. Bosa leaves. He was the guy. And then down the stretch when they really needed him, in those 3 final games, Michigan, the rival, Northwestern, and Washington, 14 touchdown passes, 1 interception. This guy kept getting better and better as the season progressed. I think the only question is it going to be 6 to the Giants, or is the team going to move up ahead of the Giants to go get him?
Well, it's interesting. It couldn't be more cliche, but the reason is true. Big players make big plays in big games. That is what you saw from him down the stretch. Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, he goes to the Giants. Does he learn for a year behind Eli Manning, or do you push the envelope?
Yeah, I think that's ideal. I think it's ideal for every young quarterback, and we've said that many different times. The fact that how the quarterback room is constructed is critical for young quarterbacks in their development, and how this room would be constructed with Eli Manning basically playing his final year would be ideal for Dwayne Haskins. Although I will say this, he's coming from a system, especially a passing game system, that is very much so what you see on Sundays in the NFL. Ryan Day is a fantastic play designer and play caller, and someone, I'm just telling you this, NFL teams, if you're looking for a head coach in the college level to try and poach, you look at Lincoln Riley all you want. Ryan Day has got it going on at Ohio State, and it trickled down to Dwayne Haskins, and Dwayne has it all. And here's the most interesting thing about him. Although we put him in the box of being a pocket passer, this is a guy who can really make your scheme much more diversified, because he can run the zone read and make it look like he's a run threat, although that's not what you want to do with him. But he can do it, and they did it. And it just presents another dynamic to the offense, although you don't want him out on the perimeter running at all. But he can do it, and that's the thing that makes him even more dangerous. I think the sky's the limit for this kid.
Well, he is set. Haskins is. So, I'm sorry, Todd, you have a rebuttal here?
I was just going to say, the mobility is interesting with him because he's not a threat as a runner. He's not fast, but he does have enough mobility, and he's quick inside the pocket. You see him when you watch games. He's extending plays by feeling it, moving. He understands, too, when the pressure's coming from the outside, I got to climb. When the pressure's coming from the inside, I got to slide. And he does that really naturally.
All right, that was John. Todd, thank you. It makes you the draft is right around the corner when you hear that chime.
Music,
right? It does. It kind of like gets you in a different mindset.
Yeah, it does.
Haskins set to become the first Big Ten quarterback taken in the first round since Kerry Collins out of Penn State in '95. Coming up, Mel has called Oklahoma's Kyler Murray one of the most intriguing prospects in the history of the draft. Find out how high he thinks the ceiling is for the Heisman Trophy winner. And with Rob Gronkowski mulling his future, Mel may have the next Gronk in this year's draft. We compare prospects to pros ahead. Welcome back to this SportsCenter special. We have picks 1 and 6 revealed, 6 being the first quarterback off the board. So we'll continue to roll with Mel's mock draft 2.0. And Mel asks you to take us picks 2 and 3, please.
Yeah, I think you look at Josh Allen going to the 49ers. They have guys like Solomon Thomas, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead. Buckner really came on this year. But I think you get a guy, an edge guy like Allen. You talked about the 1 year that he had where he really took his game to another level this past season. 7 to 17 sacks, doubled his tackles for loss numbers. He's going to run a phenomenal time at 255, 260 pounds. He is a physical and athletic freak who put it all together and really maximized his ability this year.
And Mel, Quinnen Williams?
Yeah, Quinnen's another. You just like Josh Allen. He did exactly that. He saved his best for the season. He was going to come out. Only a third-year sophomore. Went out from game 1 till the final end of the season, dominating, destroyed double teams. What I love about him is he hustles. He's got great effort. He chases in pursuit. Yeah, may not be Aaron Donald, but those comparisons are more to Williams than maybe, say, Ed Oliver. So I think when you look at what he was able to do in one season, he really catapulted from a guy who was off the radar entirely to maybe the third pick in the draft of the New York Jets.
Mel, if you had to articulate what differentiates Williams, though, what would it be?
I think the all-out effort. You don't see any plays taken off with Quinnen Williams. He's got tremendous hand usage. He disengages. He gets into that backfield. He's the closest thing to Donald at the collegiate level that we saw this year was Quinnen Williams. That's why, hey, if you're the New York Jets and you get a chance to maybe move down, that'll be enticing, but you're passing up one heck of a player if you do that, if he's there in Quinnen Williams.
Yeah, I remember watching tape in the summer and watching Raekwon Davis and Isaiah Buggs and all those front seven guys. And 92 just didn't jump out a ton. He was a redshirt freshman at the time. Now he's a redshirt sophomore this past season. And it didn't take more than about 15 plays to realize this dude, he's the guy. I mean, he is the guy. And to me, he was the best defensive player in college football this past year. The most impactful, played the biggest in the biggest games. LSU, Georgia, down the stretch. I mean, he just, every time he was on the field, he was impacting the game. And if he wasn't making the play, he was disrupting the play. And I haven't seen it in a while, a guy who's so special in one season, but you don't have a lot of tape on him before that where you feel like he's a first-round pick. So he's an interesting case study, but there's just no question in my mind that this guy has the tools to be an elite playmaker at that defensive tackle position.
Well, it's also no secret that the Jets need this pick to pan out, for sure. At number 3, what would another dominant defensive lineman do for the New York Jets?
Well, what's interesting about the Jets is ideally, Wendy, they need edge rush. They need speed off the edge, although they're going to have some depth issues with free agency coming in the interior of their defensive line. And here's where the debate comes, right? It comes, what's more important, interior pressure or edge pressure? Aaron Donald obviously has made a case for the fact that interior pressure is really where it's at, and really where teams are going to be looking to try and build their teams, and he could provide that. He is tremendous. He is hard to deal with inside, and he wrecks some teams. Look, LSU doesn't want to see anything like this ever again. What he did to their offensive line, what he did to their left guard in particular in that game against LSU. So he's special. Him and Leonard Williams would be great. I'm just wondering, though, if the Jets are looking for somebody to come off the edge because they haven't had that kind of presence in a long time.
Well, it's interesting because Mel said that the comparisons are loose to Aaron Donald, but even a loose comparison will put you in pretty good stead at the next level. Those are the chimes, so we move on. Mel, how about 4, 5, and 7? Again, we're skipping 6 because we know that's the quarterback.
Exactly, Wendy. The Oakland Raiders and John Gruden. Yeah, Kyler Murray will be enticing, but I was told, hey, don't do it now. Leave it where it is. Go with Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary didn't have the sack numbers. 9.5 sacks in 34 college games for the 4th pick in the draft. That's not what you really expect, but the scheme maybe, now you turn him loose. Coming out of high school, #1 player in the entire country. Rashawn Gary, Oakland, team him up with Maurice Hurst. Well, nice, promising rookie year, and then you have something there. You go to pick number, right after this, at pick number 5, another slight reach for me, but you have to give Tampa Bay somebody. You can't project a trade down. And Montez Sweat, great week in Mobile, getting after the quarterback. Had a good season at Mississippi State, got off to that great start, then a little quiet, then came on late with a couple sacks later in the season. Montez Sweat off the edge for Tampa Bay, something they need. A trade down, though, I think will be something to think about for the Buccaneers. They have Haskins going to the Giants. Then you look at pick 7, Jacksonville. You bring in, say, a Nick Foles. You got to protect him. You get Cam Robinson at left tackle off the injury list. You add Jawan Taylor, a right tackle, who I'm not as high on as some are, but everybody says, hey, get him into that top 10, and Jacksonville needs that guy, a plug-and-play right tackle to help that quarterback out, get that quarterback, if it is Foles, whoever it may be, that new quarterback in Jacksonville, time to throw the football.
All right, Mel, so we'll look at 8 through 12 now. What's interesting here, you finally see some skill position players coming off, including a tight end at 8, TJ Hawkinson. We're going to talk a little bit more about him. And also an injury to Marquise Brown out of Oklahoma. He'll miss the combine and his pro day, but you have him at 12 to the Packers. So it is early, but I know the two of you have already watched a ton of film. It gives us a chance to do this. I'm going to name a prospect, and you tell me a pro player that perhaps there's some comparison to, and I will start with TJ Hawkinson. Mel.
You know, Rob Gronkowski, I don't think that's overstating it. It's just the way he plays. Hawkinson plays with a chip. He plays hard. He's got that attitude about him. I'll tell you what, he blocks. He gets after you. He catches the ball. He fights after the catch. Big at 6'4.5", 6'5", 250. Should have great workout numbers from an athletic standpoint. I think with Matthew Stafford or the Denver Broncos, I thought anywhere between really 7 and 10,
Mel, you're crazy.
He could have come off the board.
He's the best tight end in the history of the NFL.
Hey. You're comping got Drew Lock to Matthew Stafford. Come on, Todd. But
I mean,
yeah, that's elevating Drew Lock just a bit. But comps aren't easy, and I think I just like the edge. The edge he plays with is kind of Gronkowski-like.
All right, Jenna. These are loose comparisons. I preface this by saying it's early. I feel like this is my fault, so you guys get along. We'll go back to back with you, Todd. DK Metcalf and Greedy Williams.
DK Metcalf, I would say. Mike Evans, I've heard a lot of David Boston in the last week or so because the pictures came out, but Mike Evans, you go back and look at who Mike Evans was. He was running vertical routes, going up and making plays, wasn't and still isn't the best route runner, but physically coming off the bus, I mean, 6'4", 230. Looks like DK might be about 245 now. He's going to have to make sure he's not putting on too much weight while training, getting ready. But I think the ability to get down the field, vertical threat, red zone threat, 50-50 balls, I just think he's a special player and was even better than A.J. Brown this past year. Now, Greedy Williams is a tough one. I'm only looking at the LSU players. We've had a bunch of guys like Dante Jackson, Tyrann Mathieu at the nickel spot. We've had a bunch of safeties, obviously, Jamal Adams, Eric Reed. They've had 13 defensive backs drafted going back to Patrick Peterson since going back to 2011. That's 8 years. 8 of those in the first 3 rounds. I think Morris Claiborne is probably the closest in terms of their skill set. I know Morris has been up and down, a lot of it with durability issues, but in terms of the ability to turn, run, cover, and just fluid, I think that that's probably the best comparison of all these great LSU defensive backs that we've seen in the last 8-9 years.
Mel, all right, how about a match for Devin White?
Yeah, Devin White flies to the football. Who does as well? A former LSU Bayou Bengals second-round pick of the Atlanta Falcons, Deion Jones. I think you look at what Deion Jones meant to that defense. You found it out when he was hurt this year. He is a guy fits today's NFL. I talked about a guy that can get to the sidelines, great range, 3-down player. That's what Devin White is. Finds the football, and he will turn out to be one of the faster linebackers you've seen over the last 5 years in the draft. That was what made Deion Jones, allowed him to be a second-round steal for the Falcons. Devin White's not getting to the second round. He's going no later than where I have him going right now at pick number 11 to Cincinnati.
All right, Mel, before we get to Marquise Brown and his match, some news. Adam Schefter tweeting earlier today that he's had Liz Frank surgery. As a result, he'll miss the combine. He'll miss pro day, but he should be ready for training camp. Does this affect his draft status?
I don't think so. He should be ready by June. He had the foot injury against Texas. He had the January 8th surgery. He should be ready to go. It's going to be interesting. You have DK Metcalf, who's that big physical talent. You got the smaller, diminutive dynamo in Marquise Brown. I still have him 112 to Green Bay. Would be a phenomenal weapon for Aaron Rodgers.
All right, Todd, with that said, then who's the mock draft match for Marquise Brown when he's healthy?
Deshaun Jackson. I think it's one of the easiest ones in all of this class. I mean, undersized, explosive, just a big play waiting to happen. And this guy averaged 18 yards per catch, and he did it vertically. He did it after the catch. He did it on reverses, working in the backfield. I mean, they utilized him in so many different ways, and I hope he winds up with a team that has some offensive creativity, because he is, and I'm not saying this lightly, and I really have thought about it and gone back and looked at every receiver that I've evaluated in the last 20 years. I think from a play speed perspective, he's the fastest wide receiver that I've ever evaluated on film. Now, we won't get the 40-yard dash. I'd love to see him run a 4.3 or 4.29 or whatever it is. But in terms of play speed and quickness combined, this guy is it.
Well, that's saying something. He would be the first non-quarterback offensive skill position player taken by the Packers since 2002 when they took Javon Walker out of Florida State. That's 16 years, and it's the longest active streak in the NFL. Still to come, Oklahoma's Kyler Murray committed, says he's all in to be a future NFL quarterback. How concerned are teams with his height?
You gotta have the will to win.
After the Oklahoma quarterback wins the Heisman Trophy, the Sooners have another quarterback who's a Heisman candidate.
He's kind of been groomed for this for a long time. He's just ready for the moment.
Kyler Murray, an absolute dime.
We feed off of him, his big playability.
I got it in me, I got it in me, I got to win to win. I got it in me, I got it in me, I got to win to win.
And he's got the quickest feet you're going to see at that position in college football.
Lickety split, touchdown. Watch out, he's in the open field, blazing down the far sideline. Oh, mama.
If you got a dream, maybe don't give up. Gotta reach your goals, gotta read your songs. I got it in me, I got it in me, I got to win to win.
Kyler Murray continues to just do filthy things on the football field.
Looking to the end zone, and it is caught. Beautiful throw by Kyler Murray. What a catch with one hand.
The 2018 Heisman Trophy is awarded to Kyler Murray, Oklahoma University.
Well, Kyler Murray made headlines last week when he announced his decision to dedicate his career to becoming an NFL quarterback, trying to rule out any other sport. He cracks Mel's mock draft at 13 overall to the Dolphins. He is one of two quarterbacks in FBS history to pass for 4,000 yards and rush for another 1,000 in the same season. And Mel, you had Murray going in the same spot in your first draft. Why did he stand pat?
You know, Wendy, I thought about 4 to Oakland, was told, hey, not now. And I'm talking about talking to people in the league. And also 11 to Cincinnati was very interesting, but kept him at Miami. I think the combine is going to be critical. Height, body type, hand size, that interview process with Kyler Murray is going to determine. So I thought it was premature to move him up to 11 or 4. Maybe after the combine that happens. Next mock to me will be at the end of March. Todd will probably have one coming up the middle of March. We'll see how the combine goes. But I think the 13 right now is what I've built as a consensus for Kyler Murray from people I spoke to in the National Football League.
Yeah, Mel, he's the story of this draft. He's the guy. Because there's really nobody like him in terms of a first-round pick in Major League Baseball, choosing to go in the NFL draft. I think he knows that he's going to go in the first round. I'm sure that his agent and his group have talked to enough teams that they are convinced he'll go in the first round. And so he'll be the first ever to be a first-round pick in both Major League Baseball and the NFL. Then, what is he, 5'9", somewhere in that range? I think he is also what today's NFL is. It's being more spread out. It's not as physical. It's guys that can maneuver and create, can throw outside of the pocket while also inside. And I just think he sees the field, has a quick trigger, and he's a much better passer than most people want to give him. I think everyone just has this ingrained in their brain because he's so quick and so fast, he can't be a great thrower. He is very natural as a passer. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see because some teams are scared off by the size and some other things, but I think he's going to wind up being a top 10 pick when it's all said and done.
Well, there's no question we will be debating this and dissecting and everything in between for the next 66 days. You heard Todd say he's the story of this draft, and that makes a lot of sense. But how big of an issue, I'm not talking about Kyler Murray, the player, but in the NFL today, how big of an issue is height?
It's a height only in the event that the player doesn't work out at this position in particular, meaning he turns into a player that doesn't live up to his lofty draft status. GMs get scared of drafting guys who don't check every physical measurable box because when a player who could potentially be drafted as high as he does, if he doesn't work out, people are going to start asking questions, namely owners will come to you and ask you questions about why did we take that player that high and why didn't he work out? Well, one of the things that owners would naturally point to with a player like this, because of all the lack of history of any player this size being drafted in the first round to play this position and being successful, owners are going to go, well, why would you take a chance on a guy like that? Why wouldn't we take someone else who fits, all the ideals? And GMs get scared of that. Look, I can't tell you how many times I heard people say this about Russell Wilson. Well, I had a first-round grade on him, but, well, is that right? Boy, I valued him in the first round. Oh, really? You did? Well, why wouldn't you take him then? Well, because his value really is in the third round. And really, what value means is that's where everybody was pushing him down to make themselves feel better about taking him. Exactly. Yeah. That's the only thing, that's the only issue that I see with height because, look, it's about throwing windows. Andy Reid used to tell me this all the time in Philadelphia. It's about throwing lanes, throwing windows, and this kid can find them.
Hindsight 2020 on that one, there's no question. All right, Mel, that was the chime. So tell me about Ed Oliver at 14.
One of the more interesting players in this draft on the defensive side. Why? Because he was projected 1 or 2. He's right there with Nick Bosa. He was the interior guy, was supposed to be a high pick. Then you look at 272 pounds. What would he be at the combine? I'm told maybe 285. Didn't have the big sack number, but a disruptor. Getting into the backfield, plays hard, gifted athlete. But can he maintain, if he is 285 at the combine, can he maintain it through the process? And can he certainly maintain it during the season once he puts the pads on?
Here are picks 1 through 15. Mel has the Redskins now taking Missouri quarterback Drew Lock at 15 overall. Lock would be the highest SEC quarterback to go in round 1 since the Panthers made Cam Newton the first overall pick in the 2011 draft. And Lock was not in your first mock. Mel, what's behind the rise here?
Senior Bowl week, Wendy, and certainly if you go back to the mid-play part of the season up until the end, the Florida game in particular, this kid was on fire. Now he does lack a little consistency at times with accuracy, but he has the size, he has a rifle arm, he's athletic. Is he going to put it all together in the NFL, Todd? Comp him to Matthew Stafford. I'll say this, if the team that drafts him, Drew Lock, gets a Matthew Stafford type, they're going to be thrilled. If he's like Stafford in the NFL, you surround him with players, which you haven't done enough of in Detroit. I think Drew Lock, middle of the first round to the Redskins, who need a young quarterback, obviously with the Alex Smith injury, I think would make sense. I'm not in love with it that early, but the kid has tremendous physical gifts.
Well, Mel, after you threw erroneous at me and Wendy earlier, Wendy was off guard and she had to throw a quick question at me, and I wound up saying Matthew Stafford. But I do think that there are some comparisons there. I get it. Now, do I think that Drew Lock is going to become Matthew Stafford? No, it's unlikely. But look at the size. You look at the big arm, and then what are the weaknesses? The inconsistency with decision making and with accuracy. Again, I'm not saying he's Matthew Stafford, but if you're asking me who's a guy in the league that fans actually know about, I think he kind of reminds you a little bit of that type of player. Now, I don't think he's a first-round talent. I've gone on record so many times saying this. I think there are 2 first-round quarterbacks in this draft, and Haskins and Kyler Murray are the 2. The other guys I would take on day 2, and I think there are a lot of them. And I think Lock's probably the 3rd best of the group, but with Jarrett Stidham and some of the other guys, Ryan Finley, I think you can find a quarterback that can be a good backup in the 2nd or 3rd round.
All right, see, Mel, you go after him, and he throws me under the bus. I see how this. I'm mad at both of you guys right about now. All right, Lewis, what do you think about Lock?
Yeah, I'm a little bit cool on Drew Lock right now. And, he's one of these guys. He's probably the first quarterback I'm going to say this. Tell me which team drafts him, and then I'll tell you how good he's going to be, or rather, I'll try and tell you how good he's going to be. I think mechanically, functionally, he needs to be with some of the best quarterback coaches and with a very rock-solid system that emphasizes a play-action type of passing game. I think he's one of those guys who just needs a great teacher. I was not that enamored with him down at the Senior Bowl, quite honestly. I can see the arm, I can see the raw ability, but just from a guy who's executing the fundamentals of the quarterback position. He didn't jump off the field at me when I was standing there next to him watching him. Now, maybe I'm dead wrong. I think 15 is a little high, but we'll see. I think he needs to go to a good place that has a good teacher. There's no question about that.
Well, we've talked about development and how important that is, or fit, when it comes to quarterbacks. That was the chime. We move on. Clemson's defense was ranked among the best in college football. Mel tells us why he sees a trio of Tigers defensive linemen landing in the middle of the first round. With our Sports Center special, and we'll keep this mock draft moving. As you can see, 16 through 19, and the only thing you really need to know there is Clemson, Clemson, Clemson. 3 members of that Tiger defensive line in this group, which would be something else. So, gentlemen, we will discuss this run on Clemson defensive linemen. Only once before in the common draft era has a team produced 3 first-round picks from the same D-line, that being NC State in 06. Mel, what separates these 3?
Well, not a lot when they're different kind of players, but they're all going to go in the same general area, and all 3 will fill needs. Clelin Ferrell coming off the edge for Clemson. To say, well, did the other guys make him better? And bottom line is, over the last 2 years, 21 sacks, 38 tackles for loss. That's pretty solid production. Will it be good? Will it be great? We can debate that down the road. But bottom line is, he figures in that 15 to 20 range. Carolina needs an edge rusher at 16. I think Ferrell makes sense for them for that reason. Then you look at the interior guy. We have Ferrell on the edge to Carolina at 17, Cleveland. The big guy, 340-pounder Dexter Lawrence, highly regarded coming out of high school. When he was 100% physically, he was a dominator. He did get into that backfield, gives you a little more pass pressure than people give him credit for. They say at 340, he'll run 5.05. If he does, he may even go a little higher than this come late April. Christian Wilkins at 19 to Tennessee. Another need-based pick. He is a man. He's been there, it seems like, forever. Christian Wilkins, solid, reliable, versatile. You know what you're getting with him at 19. That would be a nice, safe pick if he's still on the board for the Tennessee Titans at that point in the draft.
Yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for Christian Wilkins. And I've got all 3 of these guys in the top 16 in terms of rankings. Maybe a little bit high, but all 3 of them very different, as you mentioned. With Wilkins, you're getting versatility. You can play him inside, you can play him outside, you can move him around. He'll play fullback for you in red zone and goal line. He'll do anything, and he brings so much energy to the room, and I think he was part of that winning culture. After that, the tough one for me is Dexter Lawrence. I've got Ferrell as the second one between of the 3, but Dexter to me is so much potential, but just the tape isn't quite as good as you would like to see from a guy that size, that speed. I heard the bell. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you know what? I'm in a giving mood there, Todd. I let you go.
Thanks, Wendy.
Mel, take us through 20 through 22.
Yeah, 20 is interesting because there's not much separating the corners. And Gritty Williams up there at 10 to Denver. You have DeAndre Baker from Georgia, another veteran, seasoned, experienced player. And practice in games, he's going up against good-looking receivers. He's got good length for 5'10", 5'11", 185-pound press corner. Solid guy, tackles well. I felt like moving him up a little bit, just couldn't find a need fit, but I think for the Pittsburgh Steelers to pick 20, DeAndre Baker would make sense. I think he would be a guy who can be an immediate starter, immediate hole filler, and have a really good rookie year for the Steelers. Ja'Kai Polite, talking about a one-year wonder, one-hit wonder, went from 4 sacks the first 2 years, 11 this year. I tell you what, he really got after it. Seattle wants pass rushers. That's what Pete Carroll wants in that defense. As many guys get after the quarterback as possible. Polite showed this year with the Gators he can do it. Josh Jacobs, the running back out of Alabama, had to do it to the Ravens. He can run, he can catch, he can block. He has a ton of football left. You talk about the career, carries and yards. It looks like one season for most running backs. So he's got the best to come. He showed late this year what type of back he could be. Completely runs with an edge.
Kiper. Wendy, this is what happens every time. You know, there's
Listen, he said it
constant
wasn't a rule.
contradiction.
He said rule, no rule.
He sets the rules, and he doesn't follow the rules, and then he tells you that it's because it's a mock, and it's not this, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Go ahead,
Listen, the best rules are the ones you break. I mean, you know.
No first-round running back ever. I would never take a first-round running back. It's a mock draft, so I'm going to put him there.
do, and I'll project them. This is a mock draft. I'm trying to match what's going to happen, you know?
Tell him, Kiper.
You get him, Mel Kiper. Don't ask Todd and I about our parking tickets, and we'll be all right. All right, listen.
Erroneous.
Erroneous fake news. After a tumultuous season, John Gruden, the Raiders have 3 first-round picks. We'll look ahead to Oakland next. Saturday, March 2nd at 1 o'clock Eastern on ABC. We'll be at the Scouting Combine. Lucas Oil Stadium will have special coverage of the quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. as they work out. NFL Live will be there all week, and the NFL Network will have their usual coverage Wednesday through Monday, and ESPN and ABC coverage also available on the ESPN app. So here we are again, Mock Draft 2.0 from Mel Kiper Jr. It was the debut today. Here are picks 1 through 27, and notable, the Oakland Raiders, who have 3 first-round picks. So we're going to assume that is complete. Mel, tell us about the Raiders draft.
Well, defensive heavy, that's what they have to do, is stop people and then get the ball back. If it is Derek Carr moving forward, back to Carr. You think about Rashawn Gary on the D-line, but I'll tell you what, you need a pass rusher, and Brian Burns had 23 career sacks at Florida State. Khalil Mack had 24 at Buffalo those last 3 years. So I think you look at that as a pass rusher off the edge, but then you get the corner in Byron Murphy as well, who had a heck of a year. Now, he had the foot injury 2 years ago, missed 7 games, but he had 20 passes defense the last 2 years, 6 interceptions, 4 came this year. Love his ball skills, great wide receiver in high school, great basketball player. So you get Gary on the D-line, who, if he can maximize all that physical ability, could be one heck of a player next to Maurice Hurst, who came out last year out of Michigan, had a promising rookie year. You get the edge guy in Burns, and you get the corner in Murphy, who is what John Gruden wants, a true, genuine playmaker at that cornerback spot.
Well, Todd, if this is how it shakes out for the Raiders, how would you classify what they did in the first round?
They got 3 really good football players, so you have to start there. And you always have to try to find the best players. I think where these 3 guys are going is right around where they should go. The concern, though, is, and they have so many needs, but we don't have a wide receiver now. We really need to upgrade with Amari Cooper leaving. And then you've got really 2 edge players. Gary, I know you can play him inside and outside, but he's really a left defensive end in a 4-3 front, in my opinion. And so I wonder about the fits for those guys. And no playmakers and nothing to help Derek Carr if he is going to be the quarterback. And Mel, a couple weeks ago, all you could talk about was maybe we're going to take a quarterback with this spot. So I'm interested to see what changed.
Yeah, it couldn't do it. You make calls, you talk to people that said, not now. It's not the right time. We'll see what happens down the road. But right now, maybe Carr is the guy. I like Derek Carr coming out. He's a good quarterback. A couple of years ago, he was an MVP guy. Get him some help. And I agree with you, Todd. They got to get some help for Carr. But, hey, if it falls defense, that was an area of concern. It's an area they need to fill some voids. I don't think you can go wrong with those 3 picks.
Dare I ask the question? I mean, how important is this draft to John Gruden?
Well, it's
you don't want
important.
3 again.
And I'll tell you this. It's particularly, look, I agree with you here, Mel. They should draft defensive players with every pick that they have. All right? This team was 32nd in the league in pass yards per play allowed. They had 13 sacks on the season. 32nd in the NFL. The league average was 40. They had 13. The league average is 40. Just let that sink in for a minute, okay? That's ridiculous. That's what happens when you send players like Bruce Irvin down the road. That's what happens when you send players like Khalil Mack down the road. You better get some people to slow down the opponents here, because if not, look, first of all, you're not good enough on offense anyway. Yeah, you need some weapons there too. You better marry up your free agency board with your draft board, and you better make sure you nail everything right here, because this team is bereft of talent. I'm just telling you.
It's hard to find a good pass rusher.
It is.
I didn't say it.
But you know what? Hey, Mel, I like Brian Burns. I like that pick.
I like bereft, the use of the word bereft.
It just came to me.
I know. Nicely done.
It just came to me.
It just came to it. Mel, what comes to you when I say picks 28 through 30?
How about defense? That's what we're talking about here, Wendy. And I debated this pick with the LA Chargers, almost Jeffrey Simmons, Mississippi State. But yeah, the off-the-field issue, but a great player, then the ACL, probably more second round. What with Jerry Tillery? Go to that Stanford game, the Michigan game, he looked like a top 10 pick. Wasn't able to really even it out throughout the year, but he's got talent up front coming out of Notre Dame to the Chargers. Jonathan Abram, the Chiefs, a safety. You watch the Arkansas game, you think he's a top 15 pick. In-the-box guy, great tackler, really good football player, Jonathan Abram out of Mississippi State, formerly of Georgia, then the JUCO ranks, then the Bulldogs. Then you go to Devin Bush. Now, Todd's going to give me grief on this one because he drops down further than I would have wanted him to. I like Devin Bush a lot. He's a tackling machine. He's all over the field. Almost gave him to the Raiders, dropped him down to the Packers. Todd may be right on this one. He may have me on this one, but there's a chance because of need, if you go need-based, that he could maybe still be there in the late first round.
Todd?
I say nothing.
You gonna let it go? Okay.
Yeah, I'll let it go.
All right, you know what? Here you go.
Wow.
How about that? Up next, Tom, 42 and all. It says he'd like to play until 45, but we're going to talk about his successor in New England. The draft is on ESPN for the 40th straight year. It's on ABC, though, for the first time ever. It all comes to you from Nashville, Tennessee, April 25th through the 27th. All 3 days, also streaming live on the ESPN app. Our Sports Center special, the reason, here's why. Mel Kiper's Mock Draft 2.0, his second of this draft season. We've gone through a lot of this at 31. He's got Jalen Ferguson, but let's talk, Mel, for a minute about the final pick in the first round, number 32. Mel, tell me about 32.
Well, Daniel Jones, I stuck with it, Wendy, because I had some people I spoke to said maybe a little earlier than that. So I said, okay, I'm leaving him at New England. Todd, I will give you plenty. I'll give you the floor. Kill me on this one.
I'm not going to kill you on it. I understand it. I think he's cerebral. I think when you look at him, he's been well coached. He's mechanically sound and all those things. He can run as well. When I look at him, I don't see the special traits in terms of the arm talent, and I think he does inside the pocket. He takes a lot of hits because he doesn't move around. He's not twitchy as much as he is fast when he gets going. So I would have him in the second round. I've said before, I think there are 2 first-round quarterbacks. I think that Haskins and Kyler Murray are the 2 first-round quarterbacks. And if any of these other guys, kind of like back in 2011, get pushed up with Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, Christian Ponder, all those guys, if they get pushed up, it'll probably have something to do with the position, not necessarily the actual grade.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to talk about a guy who we haven't talked about here. And I think, Todd, you know who I'm about to talk about because you heard me down at the Senior Bowl talking about him every day.
You have a little crush, I know.
Jared Stidham is the guy. Hey, you know, I always pick one. I always pick one. Jared Stidham is my guy. Mel, don't look at me like that. I'm looking at you right now. I like this guy. He's got, and look, I think he's got tremendous upside. Just keep an eye on him, folks. Keep an eye on him, folks. He's going to be the sleeper.
Bye, everybody.